Okay, the topic today is chapter 17 in the book of Revelation. This is a very complicated chapter, and I was planning to go through the whole thing, but I don't think we will. We'll get a ways, and then I'm going to assign some homework at the end of our session. So I hope you will do your homework. Homework needs to be done on this chapter, because all the work that has been done so far has not settled some very important questions. So we will all have a chance to make a contribution and move the ball forward somewhat. Just to revisit the most important one of the bowls, the 7 last plagues, a verse we didn't comment enough on last time. I just wanted to bring this out. One of the members of our class talked to me afterwards, and I felt that was a point that should have been mentioned. It says here at the beginning of the 6th bowl that the 6th angel poured his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and the river was dried up in order to prepare the way for the kings from the east. Now, most of this bowl, most of this, what is described here in the 6th bowl, most of it talks about the action of the opposing side, which is what I emphasized last time, to say that it is not as though the opposing side, it is not as though the demonic forces have ceased to be an acting subject in these 7 last plagues, because often interpreters tend to say that now it's God doing it. So we emphasize that it wasn't all God doing it all, but here at the beginning of this bowl, there is a message of something God is doing, and it says that the 6th angel. It says that the river Euphrates was dried up. The water of the river Euphrates was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. And that's a picture of deliverance. And I think Janet Razuk mentioned that a couple of sessions ago, that there is in this revelatory sequence, there is a message of deliverance. And there is. There is that, and there is a message of revelation. So there is deliverance promised here, and there is also revelation, revealing other things that have not yet been fully revealed, also as part of the 6th bowl. So having said that, we will move on. Revelation 17. Would one of you start reading here?
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great whore."
Okay, now I want to show how this continues, how this is related to other things in the book of Revelation, because that's quite important to sort of orient ourselves in the text. Where are we now? And there is a marker of continuity here with the bowl sequence. And what is it? Yes, you have, one of the bowl angels is actually the one who is saying, well, I want to show you something. I want to show you some a detail here. So the point to note here is that the tour guide, or in the scholarly language, the Angelus Interpres, is one of the bowl angels. And that continues till the very end of the book of Revelation, because you have one of the 7 angels, one of these 7 angels, who will tell us about the judgment on the great whore, and then one of the 7 angels will eventually show us the New Jerusalem. So the story that began with the bowl sequence continues till the very end of the book of Revelation. There is. It's sort of an integrated whole there. So there is continuity with the bowl sequence. There is also continuity between Revelation 17 and Revelation 13. That is one of the most conspicuous continuities in the book of Revelation. So you get to Revelation 17, and there are quite a few details there that are daunting and confusing. But maybe we are overly intimidated by it. Maybe it isn't quite as complicated as we make it seem. When you revert to Revelation 13, that seems a bit simpler, and realize that he's probably telling the same story again, just in case some of us didn't get the point. So we're trying one more time. Yes, Brad.
It's interesting, in my translation of Revelation 17:1, it says, "Come, and I will show you how the famous prostitute is to be punished." And so it's almost like chapter 17 is a clarification. Let me explain what those plagues were all about. Let me show you how the punishing will occur.
Definitely, yes. So yeah, that too. So there is, again, the sixth of the plagues should be a very significant anchoring point for what comes in Revelation 17, shouldn't it? That this will be, we will get some more details on what actually happens. And let us, please remember that, and try to, when we get through chapter 17, what was it that he clarified? What was the point of clarification, if there was one? And I think you're right to say that that is what we should expect. Now, let's make sure we got it. What was the point that actually did get clarified? So, any other comments here? Well, Revelation 17 has a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. And it has names of blasphemy. And Revelation 13, same things, beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, names of blasphemy. It says in Revelation 17, intriguingly, that this beast is not. It was, it is not, and it will come again. That's the language used in Revelation 17. In Revelation 13, this beast had a death stroke, and then it recovered. So again, Revelation 17, it ascends out of the bottomless pit, which is another marker of what sort of power this is. And then in Revelation 13, the death stroke was healed. Revelation 17, the earth dwellers shall wonder at this phenomenon, especially what is it that creates the most sort of spectacular impact in the eyes of the world? It's back, It's back. It's recovered. That's right. And the same thing, and for the same reason in Revelation 13, all the world wondered. Revelation 17 and 13, again, these are so conspicuous. They are clearly intended and clearly talking about the same thing. People's names who have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. Same thing. And then Revelation 17 has a call for a mind that has wisdom, and so does Revelation 13. So again, where are we? Well, whatever Revelation 17 is up to, it seems to want to recapitulate, to revisit, and reinforce some of the concerns that we were dealing with in Revelation 13. So, okay, what does it mean? Revelation 17, John is not starting a new story. How important is that to know? It's very simple, isn't it? He is returning to and continuing the story he has been hard at work telling earlier, now perhaps with some new details and emphases. So we should not look for the new story, we should look for some new details and emphases. And probably he's up to something important. Probably there is something he's afraid maybe you didn't get that point. So let me make sure let's do it again and see if we get it. Okay, now this one is a little more tenuous, but because some scholars, including scholars in our own community, have been very reluctant to make this move. I have thought that this is a move that needed to be made long ago. If I now could pretend to be a scholar of the book of Revelation, this is something I have been thinking since I was a layperson, and I'm still a layperson. We are all studying this in sort of from the ground up. So Revelation 12. What does Revelation 12 say? Could one of you read it? I didn't put the slide in here, but I would like the text to be read in toto on this point in Revelation 12, starting in verse 13. If one of you would find it in your Bible and read it so we could hear the whole thing.
So when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she could fly from the serpent into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time. Then from his mouth the serpent poured water like a river after the woman to sweep her away with the flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman. It opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth.
Yeah, I think we can stop there. Now, what wasn't said here is what is said earlier in the book of Revelation, in chapter 12 in the book of Revelation, is the depiction of the dragon. And the dragon is what color? Is red, and he has how many heads? 7 heads, and he has how many horns? 10 horns. Yes, and this is the dragon that now is pursuing the woman, and he's pursuing her where? Into the wilderness. And the woman is fleeing from the dragon. That is the image there, the image of the dragon pursuing the woman who is in flight and is in some ways protected from the dragon, or the dragon's intent toward the woman is subverted in Revelation 12. It seems like she is escaping there in Revelation 12. What does Revelation 17 give us here? This is the enigma, in my view, or the giveaway, if you want to. Where are we in Revelation 17? John is taken in the Spirit to what place? He's taken into a wilderness. It's the same thing, into a wilderness. Now, in Revelation 12, the wilderness has the definite article, and that is quite significant in Greek, or it is often significant if you have the article, if you don't have it. So it's sort of a known location. And a slight weakness in the point I wish to broach is the absence of the article in Revelation 17. It's into the wilderness in Revelation 12. It's into a wilderness in Revelation 17. Now, if we were strictly thinking that John is writing and he is observing all the rules of writing Greek, if the wilderness was the known wilderness, the same thing, he should be using the article. But I think there is some reason to say that John isn't always playing by the rules. It isn't really safe to make that a do or die criterion in the book of Revelation, the presence or the absence of the article. So there is a wilderness, and it seems a little counterintuitive that John would go out into the wilderness to see this woman riding on the beast, thinking that this power would be out in the wilderness, that the connotation of wilderness awakens your memory of where the woman was fleeing in Revelation 12. So the power that is depicted in Revelation 17 is a power. It's red and it has 7 heads and 10 horns. It is reminiscent of the powers that we have seen earlier in Revelation 12 and 13. And now there is this image of a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. The notion of a woman fleeing the dragon and the notion of a woman sitting on the beast. What's going on here? And then there is this reaction on the part of John that most scholars take to be quite trivial. When I saw her, the text often in your Bibles are likely to say, when I saw her, I was amazed. Isn't it? What do you have in your text? Amazed? Yeah, greatly astonished. But it is even stronger than, greatly astonished and appalled. Are they Are they the same? Appalled is worse than greatly astonished. Greatly astonished could be, it doesn't say if it was negative or positive. It's sort of a neutral. But appalled is not neutral. Appalled is appalled. It's something that what he is seeing here is very negative, isn't it? And, well, greatly astonished is that you're seeing some, well, what could it be? Let's do it. Astonished. Appalled. So, reasons for being astonished. What could be reasons for being astonished? Unexpected. He didn't expect that. Okay, other reasons for being astonished or appalled. Stricken with great wonder. Yeah. Well, that would be closer to the astonished, but great wonder is fine. Appalled. Stephen Thompson, who is an Adventist interpreter who did his dissertation on the Book of Revelation, on the language of the Book of Revelation and the Semitic, what should I say? That there is a Semitic diction, there is an Old Testament diction, you might say, in the Book of Revelation, even though the book is written in Greek. He has commented on this in his he talks about the Semitic syntax of the Book of Revelation, and he is wanting us to translate it appalled. He teaches at Avondale. He's a friend of ours, and he. And others do too, by the way. Others do too. That this is a hugely negative term. So it's unexpected. Well, what he sees could be something that is contrary to expectations, or it could be, what could it be, greater than you thought, or something. Well, we've already made it bad, but good or bad, it was greater than you had expected. It wasn't necessarily bad. That's what I'm trying to say. Astonishment could be that, yes. The New Jerusalem Bible, that's good. That's interesting. Mystified. That enriches. Then that should not be there. That needs to be, that's a word that needs to be on our line up here as a translation, mystified. And what does that suggest to you? Where would that be? Would that be in the category of greater? It's the magnitude. This is on the level of magnitude here. This is the magnitude of the phenomenon, but here it is the character of the phenomenon, isn't it? So your mystified would be where? On character or magnitude? It would be on character. So here we have, I think these two translations, appalled and mystified, are actually quite helpful in terms of enriching. What is it? What is it? He goes out there in the wilderness, and you and I and readers and John himself have this recollection that there was at one point at the beginning of this story a woman fleeing the beast in the wilderness and seeming to make a narrow escape somehow. And now we're back in, well, it wasn't the wilderness, but the wilderness. And maybe John isn't so what should I say, punctilious or serious about the use of the article as one should be in Greek. So we're back in a wilderness, and we're back with a power, and there is a woman sitting on the beast, and I didn't expect that. That seems to be a sort of subversion of the imagery, doesn't it? It seems to sort of take sort of erode the distinctions that should be there. Now, in the wilderness, there is this woman, and she is sitting on the beast. And I was appalled when I saw it. I was mystified. That sort of reaction. So, of course, when John talks about his reaction, he talks about it because that was his reaction, and because that he wants us to react too. He wants to embody a reaction. He's sort of reacting to facilitate a reaction on our part. Yes. Okay, you could do that. You could do that. So that would be helpful, yes. And maybe the novelty here. See, the notion of imitation we've done already. We did that in Revelation 13. The concept of imitation, that there is a power, there is an imitative aspiration. Now, this could be then a detail, in that picture, sort of enriching that story. What was it that actually happened? And he will say later in this chapter, he will say, "Why are you so appalled? Why are you so astonished? I'm going to tell you." And then he starts telling in more detail some of these things that we probably have heard some of it already in Revelation 13. Yes, is it the same woman? So the woman, when you end up in Revelation 12, if you go back to the text that was read in Revelation 12, just look, those of you who have your Bibles, what in the end game, sort of there is a summary statement of what the end game is all about in Revelation 12. And what is the end game there? The dragon does what? Let's hear the sentence. Which verse is it? 12:17. Let's read it.
The dragon was furious with the woman and went off to fight against the rest of her descendants, all those who obey God's commandments and are faithful to the truth revealed by Jesus.
The dragon was, see here the details could be helpful. The dragon was angry with the woman and went to make war with the rest of her children. Well, he didn't just go to make war with the woman, but this is where the remnant concept comes in, where there could be, now, maybe he did accomplish something, maybe he did subvert something, maybe there was, some success in the dragon's warfare against the woman. And now what is it that needs to be done? Even in Revelation 12, that's what I'm trying to say. That what needs to be done are those who did not get subverted. It isn't the woman as such, it is the rest of the woman, the remnant of her seed, as it were. That is the object of the warfare. So if you allow some precision to those terms, it could even be implicit in Revelation 12 that, that yes, there was some success, but now it is the remnant that is the object of the attack. I think that would make sense. That wouldn't we would not be then reading something into it. What is it that surprises him in Revelation 17? The surprise is that what he should be, if you were pursuing a sort of an undamaged image in Revelation 12, it would be that the woman and the beast are far apart. But now the woman sitting on the beast, that's back to your question, which you said, is she controlling the beast? But, what's the identity of the woman sitting on the beast? And in what way might that woman relate to the woman fleeing the beast or fleeing the dragon in Revelation 12? Now, we're not going to close any deal here this morning, but these are questions that need to be asked because textually, these are markers of continuity, it seems to me, that these need to be brought into the discussion because they are there seems to be allusions to the prior text and even to Revelation 12, and the reaction is probably the most important thing in the text. What is the meaning? Why so appalled? Why so mystified? Why so in a state of disbelief at what he is seeing? Those would be the questions then. What is the core identity of the woman sitting on the beast in Revelation 17? Her original identity. Is this a sort of a bad woman from the ground up, what I'm asking here? Or is this a woman who once was something other than what she is now? That's the picture. That's the question. What's the core identity of this woman? is this woman in any way related to the fleeing woman in Revelation 12? It seems to me that it is not entirely persuasive to exclude that possibility. And if she is related to that woman in some way, what happened? That's the question. Those are the questions. Okay, Revelation 17 is also continuing the story of Babylon. And we have it here in Revelation 17:5. Babylon described as the great. She is the image is Babylon the Great. That is a. Shall we do an opinion poll here? I know who she is. Well, it's partly because the Bible, and this is a general statement about the Bible. The Bible is a wonderful book because it doesn't give you everything, finished as a conclusion. In the book of Revelation, one of the key statements in the book of Revelation over and over again is what? Is what? He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. And Revelation 13 uses that expression specifically. He who has an ear, let him hear. What does it mean? It means that the message of this book is not completed on the level of the speaker. It must be completed on the level of the recipient. It is not only what is said that matters in this book. It is also how it is heard. Would you go with that? So he could drive it home. He could sort of say, this is it, and he could have, why didn't he say this story without symbols? Why so many symbols? Why such demands on the interpreter? And why? And even to leave the risk of ambiguity. That's nothing we hate more than ambiguity in these days of pure doctrine. And here there is even ambiguity that you and I need to live with. Well, it says, he who has an ear, let him hear. Sort of shifting responsibility onto the hearer and not saying, well, it's all on the level of speaker. This has to be heard right. Are you hearing? It in the right way too. So the call to hear, Harvey Elder says that the call to hear is also a call to obey. And would that be true? And what would you, please?
I'm assuming it is. It's not just hearing. What is the call to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So there is not just a theoretical challenge here to get it right in theory. It is a call to do, and there are some explicit statements as to what the call to do is. In Revelation 13, for example, one of the calls to do is what? If anyone is to go into captivity he goes. If anyone is to be killed with the sword he will be killed. That is a sort of vocational commitment there. So we are not just sitting, in a lecture hall taking down, notes here and making sure we got it right. There is a call to, one of the calls is a call to accept martyrdom. It seems quite hard to let go of that contrast, doesn't it? That there is on the one side the faithful person, the faithful woman, and that it's meant to show us that the woman that we see in Revelation 17 is meant to be seen as an unfaithful woman. At the point of origin in her history, she was something other than what she is now. That's what that it seems hard to let go of that possibility, but we're not going to drive hard at it because it's not a point that is universally accepted. But let's do some more work and then yes, please. Okay, the question here, I'll just repeat it because we're doing a recording now. That the question is that we went through Revelation 16 with the bowls too fast, and we too quickly drew the conclusion that that God is withdrawing, that what is happening in Revelation 16 on the bowls is not God's action, but God's absence in some ways. God sort of retreating and allowing evil to show its hand. And you may be right that we need to do that better and do a retrospective. But I think we could do it as a retrospective once we have moved through, since we are still on the topic, since we have already established that there is continuity in Revelation 17 with Revelation 16 and with other layers. So if we are not satisfied, we can do it as a retrospective. Actually, we're still on subject. That's what I'm saying. So maybe there will be more evidence forthcoming for one view or the other, since this seems to be, as you have suggested here, this seems to be an expansion on a detail in what could well be seen as belonging to the 7 last plagues. We haven't left it. We're still on subject. Revelation 17 continues the story of Babylon. And here you see Babylon the Great mentioned in Revelation 14 in the second of the 3 angels' messages. We see it mentioned again and in Revelation 16 as part of the bowl sequence, the great city, the great Babylon. We see it mentioned in Revelation 18. So we're certainly not done with it. The topic is sort of all over us. We're surrounded by it in these texts. The great city Babylon still in chapter 18. So when we get there will be more coming. And several references in Revelation 18. So we're sort of stuck in this subject for some time now. And that might give us more things to build a view on eventually. Okay, let's have one of you read again. This is repeating the text we read earlier, but it is giving the whole verse. And one of you read that.
Come, I will show you the judgment of the great whore who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and with the wine of whose fornication the inhabitants of the earth have become drunk.
Yeah, the question here would be to pursue a little the image of prostitution, the meaning of the image of prostitution here. What does it mean? Just as a preliminary thinking on my part, it would tend to support the notion that we should be surprised when we see a woman sitting on the beast. We who have been conditioned by these terms by Revelation 12 of a woman fleeing the beast. But here are some texts in the Old Testament. This doesn't complete it, but more often, mostly, the image of prostitution in the Old Testament talks about someone who was faithful and who isn't faithful anymore. It talks about someone of whom faithfulness was expected and who did not, live up to that. See here, this lament in Isaiah chapter 1, how the faithful city has become a whore. She that was full of justice, righteousness lodged in her, but now murderers. So surely the image of prostitution is an image of in some ways, what would you call it? Apostasy? Well, it's someone whose sort of commitment is other than what actually happened. Jeremiah 2 verse 20, for long ago you broke your yoke and burst your bonds, and you said, I will not serve. On every high hill and under every green tree you sprawled and played the whore. Who is pictured here? Who is the woman here? The woman here is Israel. The woman here is the people of God. The covenant, the covenanted people of God, the faithful city, and no, not faithful anymore. And that is the dominant usage of prostitution language in the Old Testament. It's not the only one, but We'll briefly mention another one. Yes, please. That it recapitulates that story, and now, but now there is other. Now, it's the people of God. At least in Old Testament terminology, the people of God. The language of prostitution belongs to unfaithfulness on the part of the people of God. That would be a primary meaning that needs to be kept in mind. Ezekiel chapter 16 and to some extent chapter 23, those are chapters that are all about this. It's a quite a compelling image where where God is speaking about how he found this baby that was sort of an abandoned baby, wasn't it? There was no people in the delivery room, just left the baby there in the blood, and then God walks by and finds this baby that has been abandoned, and he takes the baby and cleans the baby up and adopts the baby and gives that baby a wonderful upbringing, and then the baby grows, comes of age, enters puberty. It's described as with the signs of puberty, and with puberty all kinds of desires are awakened, and the child goes off, and is not living the way that the adopted parent had expected. But here in Ezekiel 16:15, but you trusted in your beauty and played the whore because of your fame and lavished your whorings on any passers-by. It's quite. And this is the chapter, by the way, where Israel is described, is compared to Sodom and Gomorrah. And the sin of Sodom was what? Sin of Sodom was, materialism and lack of hospitality and things like that. So it's sort of self-centered and indifferent to the plight of the poor. That's kind of what it's depicted. Hosea 9:1, do not rejoice, O Israel. Do not exult as other nations do, for you have played the whore, departing from your God. You have loved a prostitute's pay on all threshing floors. This imagery, so prostitution then would be sort of unfaithfulness. And if there is another image that we should put in there, because there are other texts talking about prostitution as trade. Here, prostitution is fallenness, that you abandoned your calling. Sometimes when pagan nations are accused of prostitution, it is with a sort of metaphor of trade. This would seem to me to support the notion that the woman that is being described in Revelation, that there is some support for the notion that she was something other than what she now is. That is the point we're pursuing. The bride. That certainly is a very important image here, and in the end, in Revelation 19, there is an invitation to what? To a wedding, and there is the notion of where there is something going on between Jesus and the people of God, in a sort of wedding metaphor. That's helpful. That's good. Yes. It's true that nobody is going to church, but it isn't entire. It isn't. Well, very few people do go to church. That is true. Now, Reader's Digest did an experiment. I think it was either Reader's Digest or National Geographic did a study where they took somebody's billfold. Have you heard of that experiment? They took somebody's billfold. You say billfold with the credit cards and the money and stuff. They took somebody's billfold and left it, abandoned it, like somebody had lost it, in various countries in the world, to see who would return it. They put it out there in Denmark, and they put it out in Spain and in Greece. I think they did it in the U.S. too. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Did they? In Australia. Well, the country that returned it the most, if that would provide some insight into sort of moral rectitude, which was the country that won. Well, I wish. I wish, because we hold we have resentment against the Danes because Denmark ruled Norway for 400 years, but it was Denmark, in through and through secular Denmark. You can get your billfold back if you lose it in the streets. You're more likely to get it back there than in other countries. Anyway, I think we have some pictures to help us on these texts, and we will move on then. Biblical meaning of prostitution. So prostitution is an image of unfaithfulness, of falling away. Well, it is that too, at least. It isn't only of trade. In the Old Testament, the woman charged with prostitution most of the time is Israel. In Revelation, then, and this is sort of cutting to the chase, could be understood as the fallen church, as the fallen people of God, who have sort of lost her way, and that could be part of our image here. I'll speed up a little here. So he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The tantalizing image of this woman. What is she? Now, I want to sort of tease out some things, and I have added a few slides here too. She is a woman of slander. Now, what I'm trying to put or to sort of decipher a little or to spread out a little is the notion of blasphemy. So what is meant by blasphemy in the book of Revelation? What do you think of when you hear blasphemy? Is blasphemy possible in the U.S.? Is there a law in the U.S. Against blasphemy? A blasphemy paragraph in the U.S. Constitution that you can say something about God that is absolutely forbidden to say, because blasphemy has to do with God. It has to do with religion, doesn't it? That you're taking the power of God. That could be taking the power. So it's taking God's power, or power of God. But just for popular usage, is there a blasphemy paragraph in the U.S. Constitution that there is a kind of speech you cannot do because it is religiously offensive and you are forbidden? So he is assuming a divine prerogative, and the notion of assuming a prerogative that belongs to God is blasphemy, and that is biblical. That's New Testament. That's good. So that works. Taking power that belongs to God, that would work. Other things on blasphemy. In European constitutions, we do have speech that is outlawed. There is no your free speech notion seems to me to be broader than the European free speech notions. Now it has been attenuated, and maybe it has been removed, or there are talks about removing it. But there are still speech thought to be absolutely not legitimate speech in most European constitutions, so for religious reasons. Any other thought on what blasphemy could be? Here is another notion of blasphemy that we have been talking about that does not invalidate what we're talking about here, but it isn't the same point. Here is the notion of slander. Here is my translation of Revelation 13:6. I've given it earlier. The beast in Revelation 13:6, which is similar to the beast in Revelation 17, because we've already established those parallels. That beast opened its mouth in slander against God, misrepresenting his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. That is an alternative translation and a legitimate translation of Revelation 13:6. So what does that mean then? What are you doing here? In this one, you're taking prerogatives that belongs to God, and you say that's blasphemy. But what are you doing when you do this? You talk about God and attribute to God ways that are not exactly right. Now, the serpent in the Garden of Eden did what? Genesis 3:1. did he say, I want to be God? He said that in Isaiah 14. He said that in Ezekiel 28, that he wanted to, upward mobility all the way to the top. But in Genesis 3, does the serpent misrepresent God? And he misrepresents God by attributing to God nothing related to God's power. Nothing related to God's power, but related to God's character, God's ways, God's way of doing things. So he misrepresents. This type of blasphemy is not blasphemy in the power relation, but blasphemy in the character relation. So here is the one, a quotation from a book, a commentary. Blasphemy in the New Testament refers to the act of claiming equality with God. Good and well, that's true. But blasphemy in the Bible also refers to the act of misrepresenting the character of God. If the serpent in our Bible story, if Lucifer in our Bible story had the aspiration that he wanted to do a power grab, that it was meant as a power grab, the way to achieve that power grab was to misrepresent the character of God. So the substantive issue, the strategic issue, has to do with the character of God. He could only go up there by taking God down a notch. And taking God down a notch was about God's character. So that is really quite a central thing. And it seems to me in the book of Revelation that the notion of blasphemy should primarily be on the level of slander. On the level of slander, the level of misrepresentation. And that would be thoroughly biblical too. But these are related, and the notion of taking divine prerogative. Now, it could be that the people who criticize Jesus for forgiving sins are just saying that they don't like that he takes on that prerogative. But beyond that, they don't even like forgiveness of sin. It could be that there is a character issue too, that it is not just Jesus as taking, forgiving, where that's none of your business, only God can forgive sin. Whereas, maybe they don't really believe in taking people back. Maybe they don't even believe in that kind of restorative mercy, as it were. Well, what's the homework? See, we didn't get to some of the points because I brought an amazing book here, and I want to read to you from this book. And I won't even tell you what it is, but I'm going to read from it eventually. It will be 2 weeks from now because we're going to break next Sabbath. We will have a visit from Judy Gundry from Yale University, and I think we have an announcement in our on a slide to that. So I'm sorry we won't be here. Here is what I'd like to do as homework. The text in Revelation. We will do the other verses too. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. These are lots of details in this chapter. They are also 7 kings, of whom 5 have fallen. 1 is living, and the other one has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain only a little while. And as for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. Come back with your term paper 2 weeks from now and explain what those texts are talking about. Thank you very much.